Hey guys, back with another YouTube video. Today it's going to be a collections video. Now I have not done one of these kind of videos in a while, and I was looking at the comments on some of my videos, and one guy said I should do an update on my Switchblade collection. And I said, well, now that I think about it, I hadn't done a collections video in quite a while. And the reason why is because, I've been so busy lately with my knives and stuff like that. Like I said, I don't do as much YouTube as I used to because, like I said, I do have a business to run. So today, as a special request, I don't remember the guy's name, but you know who you are. I'm gonna do a update on my Switchblade collection, my butterfly knife collection, and my straight razor collection. Now I don't have much straight razors, but I got a plenty of butterfly knives and switchblades. Now I collect those because I'm a big fan of the old gangster movies from back in the day. That, and I've always loved automatic knives. I used to carry one a long time ago. I don't carry one now anymore, but. And automatic knives and butterfly knives are actually legal where I am. I'm in Arkansas. You can legally have an automatic knife of any kind. It doesn't matter. They changed the law back in 2002. So the first automatic knife I'll get is the one that's in my back pocket. This is my OTF. Now this may be a knockoff version of an M-Tech, but it's very heavy. It's all metal construction. I actually bought this from my mother, among all people. My mother got this at a flea market a while back, and she needed some money, and I asked her, well, could I have your other knife? And she said, what, do you mean this one? I said, yeah, I'll give you 40 bucks for it, which I did. And it's very well worth it. It's got a good spring to it. I love doing that. So this one I do carry every now and then, but I don't carry it as much as I normally do. Because, that little glass breaker always pokes into my side whenever I'm carrying it. So I don't carry it as much, but I do carry it here and there. This is probably the only automatic knife I normally carry the most. Alright. Next is a rare jewel that I've still yet to find the value of. The black dagger made in Korea with the original pouch. Now, this may look like a switchblade, but this is actually a fixed blade. And what that means is, when the Switchblade law came into effect back in the 60s, I think it was, a lot of companies were making knives to kind of get around that category, and what they made was, well, this. Basically what this is when you press the button down, these little plastic guards go down, and then you reveal a blade. This one was made in 1986. Very rare. I've not seen one of these for a very long time. And I bought this at a flea market a couple years. No, it's actually been a few years ago, actually. And I've yet to find the value of this thing. This is one of my favorite knives I will never sell. I don't care how much I'm offered as long as I know the value of this thing. So that's one of my favorites in my collection. And I think I paid $12 for this at a flea market. Next is my pearl-handled stiletto switchblade. My mother bought this for me a couple years ago back in Hot Springs. And I originally had two of them. I had this one and a brown-handled one, but I lost that knife a long time ago, and I would love to get a new one to replace it, but yet to find one. My mother paid $20, I think it was, for this. And darn, it still has a good spring on it. I don't carry this knife anymore. I mainly carry this on special occasions. Because, if you're wearing a fancy suit, you want to wear a fancy knife to go with it. Next is one of my unusual ones that I purchased at a flea market a couple years ago. Now, at first glance, it looks like a switchblade comb, and that's what I thought it was when I first saw it in the display case. But when I opened it, yeah, you see that someone actually attempted to put a blade in it, and they used some kind of butter knife or whatever. And I thought that was really cool. It was only $8 at the flea market, and I'm like, well, I'll take it anyway, because it's unusual, and I do like it, because I used to do the exact same thing when I used to buy these all the time. So that's mainly in my collection, because it is a switchblade, technically, or someone that converted it to one. So that's one of my favorites. Next is my brown-handled 13-inch switchblade. Let me get my small one out for comparison. See, this is the normal size of a small switchblade, and this is a 13-incher. Now, anyone who watches gangster movies from the 70s, 80s, and older would recognize this switchblade because a lot of the gangster movies would have a 13-inch switchblade like this. I bought 4 of these. Well, I didn't buy them. I traded them. I traded the guy 2 of my bayonets in exchange for 4 of these. This is number 1, and it's got a hell of a good spring to it. These are AKCs made in Italy. That's awesome. And next, of course, is the other 13-inch, my black-handled one. Oh, that's what I love doing that with these things. Again, this is from that trade, and these are worth about $100 a piece. Next is the one my mother likes, the blue-handled one. Again, $100 a piece, so that normally tells you. Might as well get this one out. And then, of course, my favorite among the 4, my bone-handled switchblade. Yeah, I'm still working on the spring, though. Blade's still bent. I've been working on this one here and there because the spring still likes to fire while it's closed. Like that. There we are. Real deer antler handles, double-edged blade, and has a very thick handle. Reminds me of the actual ones from the movies where you would see one of these with a deer antler handle. This one's definitely my favorite among the 4. So that's going to stay in my collection. None of these are for sale, by the way. Next is another switchblade I bought bought at a flea market a couple years ago. And the reason I bought this one was because, very simple, I did not have one with that particular spike blade. And this was the biggest one I had at the time. And I bought this, I think, for $30 at a flea market. Now, it is a Chinese knockoff, but it's got a damn good spring in it. That one's one of my favorites. Next is my very first switchblade. I got this in a trade many years ago, and this was my very first automatic knife that I carried. And as you can see, it's been used and abused. And I made these deer antler handles on this thing because at the time I really wanted to know how this works, so I took it apart, cleaned it, put it back together all the time. And I used this knife for a long time. I carried it, used it for all kinds of things. And I used my belt sander a long time ago to make the blade look like that. I regret doing that now. But yeah, this was my very first switchblade. I think this one was made in Italy, but I don't really remember. But it was a beautiful knife, and it still is. This one's retired now. I don't carry this anymore. But after all the years of me using it, it's got a good spring in it. Next is a spring-assisted version of a 13-incher. Now, the reason why my friend Jimmy gave this to me a long time ago, and the reason why I kept this is very simple. Well, it was given to me for starters, and that I have the Switchblade version and the spring assist version to show you the difference. A Switchblade is definitely a lot different than a spring assist. It's very simple. In order for the blade to come out, you have to press the button, and that's what activates the blade. As a spring-assisted knife is a lot different. The guard here is actually attached to the blade, and when you release it, you gotta press on the guard in order to make it come out. And that's the main difference between a switchblade and a spring assist. They're not the same at all. The only difference is the only thing that's the same is that they're both automatics. But a spring assist is not a switchblade by any means. That's one of my favorites. That's the main reason I keep this around. One, it was given to me. Second, I like to have the spring-assisted version and the switchblade version to show you the difference. Next is another switchblade I bought while I was in Hot Springs. I think this one was about $20. It's It's got the bayonet blade, nice green acrylic handles, which is the reason I bought it. And who knows, maybe when I go back to Hot Springs, I'll probably go to that same store where I saw this and probably buy some more, because he had a whole cabinet of these. So I think I might go back and buy some more. Spring still has me some troubles. That's one of my favorites. Next is Switchblade I bought a long time ago off a guy off Let Go. This is a 1960s stainless switchblade with the drop point blade where it curves down like this. And it's from the 1960s, has the classic black handles. I've always wanted one of these little minis because this one's been in who knows countless movies. And it's still got a good blade. I don't carry this one as much, but I have carried it in the past just to see how good it is. And it holds a very good edge. Next is one I got from a bundle that a friend of mine sent me. It's all plastic, but it's got a good spring in it. I put a belt clip on it, and I put a tip back on it, and of course I use this here and there. It's a good little switchblade. It's very light. It's what I like. It's got plastic handles, a stainless blade, which is easy to sharpen. So I mean, it's cheap, but it's actually worth it when you want a good little automatic and you don't want to spend a lot of money. That's one of my favorites. Next is my police switchblade. Now, the reason I call it that is because when you open the blade, it says police model on it. And believe it or not, a lot of police officers in my area carry automatic knives because they're so handy. And like what I've said in the past is you can't always use both hands to open a knife. So that's kind of why I carry an automatic, because it's easy and it's handy. Like when you gotta, oh, hey man, do you have a knife? Yeah, I do, here you go. Very easy, very quick. I don't normally like a half serrated blade, but I have used this here and there. This is one of my favorites, and I put this bail on the end. And of course I keep this oiled regularly. It's got aluminum handles, very light, like I said, and it goes really good into the hand. So again, that's one of my favorites. Next is an old automatic that don't work anymore. This is my old Tops automatic. I played with this a lot, not knowing what it was when I first bought it. I think I paid 20 bucks for it originally. And I played with this thing so much over the years that the springs broke in it. So now it's just a gravity knife. It was my first OTF. That's the main reason I'm keeping this, because it was my first OTF, and hopefully someday I'll probably be able to fix it. Next are my two World War I and Vietnam era paratrooper knives. Now the first one I'll show off is this one that my father helped me get. This was $17 at a flea market. Got a good spring in it. Made by Sherrod Walton. These were common during the Vietnam War. The Camillus ones were mainly during World War I, I think, and World War II. It's got the original hook still on it. And it's got the original handles. Again, one of my favorite knives. This one will always stay in my collection. Hopefully I'll be able to find the other two, because 4 companies made this particular knife. And then of course the very first one I ever bought was this. This is a Camillus version of a paratrooper, which I made the handles and made the hook on it because the original hook was gone. So I made the hook and polished the blade, cleaned the mechanism and everything. There's videos about me cleaning this, so hey, if you ever want to see this thing being restored, go back to the videos. Put all these back in the bag. And then I'll show off my butterfly knives. It is hot today, folks. That was back in the pocket. Alright. Next Next, let's go to this bag where it's got my butterfly knives. Oh, I almost forgot. This little automatic my father bought me. I did a video about this. This is an old, I forgot what this is called. An old, I forgot what this would be called, but this will be technically called a pen knife. My father bought this for me a long time ago, and I still got it. I'm still trying to find a way to fix the spring without breaking these handles. So that's my last little automatic. Next, going into my butterfly knife collection. Now, I don't have much butterfly knives because I only collect them if they don't look like the ones I already have. So I guess I'll start off with the very first butterfly knife I ever got. This one was a gift from my father. Now, originally, it had handles like this. This thing out. It had handles like this, but I flipped it so many times over the years that it broke, so I replaced the handles with this nice decorative bar. And it's actually very light. I still got it. And I did some engraving on the back of it, and you know, to make it look more nice, and I polished it up and used the original latch that was on the handles. So thank you, Dad. I love this thing, and I'll still always keep this in my collection. Next is a butterfly knife I got in a trade a while back, and the reason why I'm keeping this one is because this is exactly what my old one looked like. I still got it. I mean, when anyone thinks of a butterfly knife, this is normally what they think of. So yeah, there's that one. Next is another butterfly knife. I'll do this one to show the difference. Now, at first glance, they look almost the same, but when you notice the top, this is not the same, and this is actually skinnier than this. See if I still got it. Yep, I still got it. Still got it. Anyway, as you notice, the blades are different. And even the handles are different if you look closely. So that's the reason I kept this one. And I bought this while I was in the Queen with my mother. Next is another one I've got in trade because a friend of mine gave this to me. This one doesn't really flip that easily because it's still stiff. This one is a Hornet 6. It's an old butterfly knife. These are actually quite collectible, and I have the big brother. I don't have the little one yet. Hopefully I'll find one. A very nice friend gave this to me in exchange for cleaning up his knife. That's one of my favorites. Next is one I bought at a pawn shop. Now, in some ways this wouldn't be considered a butterfly knife, but I still think it is. I bought this at a pawn shop a long time ago. It's an old stainless Taiwan fish scaling knife. Now this is what really surprised me. This is worth over $150 new. And that really surprised me for a stainless Taiwan knife. So that's the reason I'm keeping that, because it's unusual and I like it. Next is one I bought a couple years ago. This is my Pakistan butterfly knife, and the reason why I bought this is because it's made out of brass for starters, and it's got some very good weight to it. I mean, it's a lot heavier than the average cheap butterfly knife, and I think I paid $2 for this at a flea market. It's got the original bayonet blade. One of my favorite butterfly knives because it's very heavy and it flips really good. Last but not least is a butterfly knife I bought at a gun show with my dad. I paid $5 for this at the gun show. It's actually a lot bigger than my average ones, but it's still easy to flip. Very nice bayonet blade. All it says is stainless steel. So that's one of my favorites. It's probably a knockoff of a Benchmade, but whichever, I'm still keeping it because I bought it while I was with my father. Alright, that's all my butterfly knives I have. Now, I used to have a black one of these originally, but what had happened is I flipped it so much I broke it, so I'll probably find another black one somehow. Now going into my straight razor collection, and who can forget these? My replicas of Sweetie Todd's straight razors starring Johnny Depp. I love the movies, that's another reason I got this. And they're actual licensed replicas of his razors. So that's one of the reasons I keep these. That and these are larger than the average straight razor. I mean, just look at those beauties. Next is another straight razor my father gave me. It's a Steel Warrior one, but it is sharp as, well, a razor. Nice engraving on it. It's got a nice pearl handle. It's got a Steel Warrior logo on it. And it's smooth as butter. That one I'm keeping because it was given to me by my dad. Next is another one that was given to me by my dad. Again, Steel Warrior. And it's heavy too. This thing is heavy. And it's sharp too. Whitetail cutlery or... no, wait a minute. Yep, Steel Warrior. And last but not least, the straight razor I restored a long time ago. I got this in a bundle of stuff that I purchased. And I restored this, took it all apart, cleaned it up, put a white washer in the bottom. Excuse me. And it is sharp. Alright. I think that's everything. Let me go ahead and take these right here. Yep, that's everything. Here. Alright. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I guess if you want me to do an update on any other part of my collection, because I collect a lot of different knives, so I guess if you want me to do an update on any other part of my collection, let me know. And as always, stay sharp.